Welcome to Just Say This, the place to get all the help you need for the birds and bees talks. I'm your host, Amy Lang. Just a quick reminder, this show is for grown-ups because I'll be swearing. There'll be lots of swears, and then I'll also be talking about grown-up sex. I can guarantee that your kids do not want to listen to this, and they really don't want to listen to it with you. You've been warned. Do you have a question for me? Please give me a call. The phone number is 206-926-1522, 206-926-1522, and I will answer on the show. And if you have a funny sex talk story, please call in those as well, 206-926-1522. Thanks. Howdy, how's it going? I'm good. I know you're really wondering about that. Two public service announcements. The first is that my sweet 85-year-old mom got taken in by a scammer. She was at her lovely computer. She pushed a button, hit a link, and her computer started blasting alarms and telling her to call this number at Microsoft. And to her credit, she called her computer guy who did not pick up, and to not her credit, and seriously, we are not mad at her or anything like that because you know this is happening to everyone. She called the number and they led her down a garden path, and they were incredibly clever. And long story short is she gave them money via Bitcoin machine. She took out a bunch of cash. The tellers at the bank tried to get her to cop to what was going on. She lied to them. They told her where to go. They stayed on the phone with her. She put her money into a Bitcoin machine. And then through the whole thing, there were a variety of steps. No alarm bell went off for her. Now, no judgment. You know, an 85-year-old brain can be very much like a 15-year-old brain. And so it was awful. It was really devastating. Fortunately, she could afford the money that she gave these motherfuckers. My dream is that they, I don't believe in hell, that they suffer a terrible amputation of the dominant hand, and they look at their hand and their arm, and it's amputated. It gets cut off in the worst place possible. And so just sitting there, lying there, bleeding, and looking at their hand that they can't do anything about. Anyway, so here's my public service announcement. Please remind your people that if that ever happens, it is a lie. Don't call the number. Turn off the computer. It's like watching porn, right? Don't call the number. Don't stop watching. Turn off the computer and call someone who's trusted. Your computer person, you all, in particular with your elders. The other scam that's going around is that they will call and pretend to be a grandchild, or they will tell them that the grandchild is in a Mexican prison and they need money for bail to get out, like all kinds of bullshit. So just a public service reminder. Please tell everybody this. It's so easy to get taken in. You know, my mom is, pretty undone, but, we, again, could happen to anyone. And she's healthy and she wasn't hurt other than having her little blow to her ego. Anyway, that's the first public service announcement from me. The next is related to sex. Yay! I realized in this past, kind of over the spring and summer, that parents of neurodivergent kids are not getting help talking to their kids about sex. I just finished a certification in neurodiversity and sexuality and disability and sexuality. And so I'm planning to start working with parents of neurodiverse kids because y'all don't have what you need. It's different. And the other piece is that your lives are more complicated than those of us with typical kids. And there's a lot of myth and shame and trouble when it comes to thinking about kids who are neurodiverse or disabled or any number of different ways in the world about sex and sexuality. So a couple of the myths are that they're asexual, that they're not interested in sex at all, or they're hypersexual, which they're not, or that if you talk with them about it, it's going to put them at risk somehow, like they'll go out and try to do it or want to do it or seek it out or something like that. And then there are a handful of other things. So those are all myths. They're not true. Like everybody is sexual from the beginning to the end of their lives. It looks different for everyone. And so That's what I'm going to start doing. So if you haven't signed up for my newsletter, you can do that in the show notes and do it and keep your eye out. If you have a neurodiverse kid, I'm going to be running some classes. I want to do a focus group. So if you want to reach out to me directly to be part of the focus group, it's amy@birdsandbeesandkids.com. Turn me off. Do it right now so you don't forget. And yeah, keep your eye out. So I'm excited about this. I'm really excited to be helping parents with this part of life because it gets missed. It gets missed for these kids, and it shouldn't. It shouldn't. It is just as important for their functioning and wholeness as a human being as everything else. All right, on to questions. I'm going to start with a mailbag question. I always print them out, write them down so you can hear the rustles. All right, this is what I got. Hey, Amy, I have a 5th grade boy and he knows almost everything, but I haven't really talked about masturbation or wet dreams, because I'm worried he'll do it a lot because we've talked about it and he knows what it is and that it might sort of take over or hijack his life. What do you think? Here's what I think. You need to talk to him about it. If he's in 5th grade, that means he's probably getting boners and he may have already figured out it feels good to masturbate. He might not know the words because kids need to hear this stuff more than once. So I would do this probably in the car, and I would just say, hey, just wanted to let you know that lots of kids your age, they, figure out that it feels really good to touch their penises, and you can say their clitorises, you should, so everybody gets involved. And it's totally common, normal. It's called masturbation. It's something that is really healthy and something that is important for you to do to learn your body. And it's something you can do in private and when you're alone. And I'm telling you, because sometimes kids feel embarrassed or ashamed when they figure this out. And there's nothing to be embarrassed or ashamed about. It is something that is important, because someday when you're having sex with someone else or doing something sexual, it's really important to know your own body. Now, probably going to need to practice that. And the reality is he's going to do it as much as he's going to do it, right? I mean, he might do it a lot. He might do it not at all. Not everybody wanks, right? So I would also, since you're worried about this, is either in that conversation or in another one where you can just say, okay, just have to do one more thing about the masturbation thing. I would also give him the slang, wanking. That's what, just say wanking. It's called wanking, jerking off, choking the chicken, throw some slang at him. And say, sometimes when people are wanking, they might think you should say masturbating. Sorry, that's too Amy. Sometimes when people masturbate, they might think they're doing it too much. So I just want you to know that if you're hurting yourself or you can't stop, you can send me a text or write me a note and let me know. Sometimes this happens to people and we just want to make sure you're okay and healthy. That's it. So they're going to fucking do it, right? Everybody does it. Not everybody. Most people do it. And then the wet dream thing. Oh, please tell him about wet dreams. You can't make yourself have a wet dream. And he should know, because lots and lots of times people think that they've wet the bed, which is really, really humiliating. So let him know that that is also normal. It's just his body practicing. And that's something that happens to lots and lots of people. People with clitorises can have wet dreams as well. They're just less wet. One more thing about the masturbating. Let him know that, it's something that he needs to clean up after himself, Kleenex, bottle of lotion, using a sock, whatever. This is a good time for them to start doing their own laundry. Yes, life skill. As you all know, Milo did his own laundry again, mostly because he was worried that I was going to, wash the blacks and the whites together, which of course I'm going to do that because I don't care. So yeah, get the masturbation conversation out of the way. Be really clear that everybody masturbates. People with clitorises, people with penises. Also be clear, not everybody does it. It's not required, but again, they need to know about it. So yeah, don't worry about it. He's going to do it as much as he's going to do it. He just needs to know this is when it's too much.
Hi, Amy. I love all the information that you share and have been on some of your workshops. My question to you is, I have an 11-year-old daughter, and I have been remembering that you said bite-size info, small repeatedly, is the best approach. And I've continued to try and do that, and my question is, it's still not being met with great enthusiasm. I guess that's the right way to say it. It's more along the lines of, ew, or are you talking about that again? Or I don't want to hear it. So do you have any advice onto how to proceed? I'm assuming continuing, small, bite size, 2 minutes, 2,000 times. I think that's what you said a while ago. So I just wanted to get some encouragement and hear if I'm on the right path. Thank you.
There's not much harder in the sex talks world than working it and doing what you're supposed to be doing and talking and following the expert advice and hanging in there and getting nothing back, getting pushback. It's so hard. So A, go you for hanging in there with her even though she is not having it. And B, yes, you do need to keep at it, but let's do some tweaking a little bit. So first of all, I would ask her just, casually kind of at bedtime or something like, hey, I just want to ask you a question. I'm really curious. When we talk about sex stuff, or I try to talk to you about sex stuff, you always you say, ooh, it's gross, I don't want to hear it. And I'm just wondering, what's that? What is that about? Can you tell me more? Because I don't want you to be uncomfortable, but you do need to have this information. So I would start there. I would also, if you have not already, just say, have you seen porn or something like that on online? Because if it were me and I was your age, I would be super grossed out at the very thought of sex. If you have, you won't be in trouble. See what she does with that. Because it could be that she's been porn exposed and it's like, oh my dear God, this is horrible. I don't want to hear about it. And of course, it could be that she's just naturally adverse to hearing about this stuff. Lots and lots of people are, lots of kids are, and especially at her age, I've talked about this a million times. It's just that kind of natural aversion that, of course, I really like. So I would do that. I would have that conversation. I would also say to her, okay, we have to talk about this. So how about we figure out some better ways for you? And then how about I write you notes? How about when I have a video from Amaze that I really like, I think you should watch, I set you up with that. How about the books that we have? I'll just put little post-its in there on sections that I think would be important for you to read and that you might find interesting. So use these different strategies and then tell her, I'm not going to stop talking. And I need to talk to you because you need to hear my values. And I want you to know that I'm here for you when you do have questions, if you ever have questions. And then I've probably talked about this, but the other thing to do as well is to have a journal that you write back and forth in. So she doesn't have to have that face-to-face conversation. Sometimes that's better for kids like her. But I would really check about the porn thing because you just got to know. And then the other piece of this is to talk about how your life was because you didn't have what you needed. Now, don't go into detail, right? Don't say all the icky, yucky stuff, but just talk about how you needed to know this stuff. And then, of course, you also need to say it's really great to be the smartest kid in your friend group about this because it super is. It's a point of power. Sometimes that resonates with people. So I'm just going to encourage you to hang in there, think a little bit outside of the box, don't stop talking. And if you have been talking to her, like trying to have sex talks like 3 times a week, slow your roll. That's way too much, especially since she's resistant. And the other thing is you might be getting a little like, okay, we gotta talk about condoms. Like you might be getting a little frantic-y with her and pushy. So I would also kind of take a step back. You could also say to her, I maybe haven't been doing this right for you. So let's just take a break from it. So do all that and then roll out the sneakiness, right? Watch TV shows together that have teenagers and folks in romantic situations where sex is on the table, or that kind of stuff, or fooling around's on the table. Relationships are happening, so you can learn through that as well, right? I know I say these things all the time, but remember, you can use the world around you. So hang in there. You're doing great. I'm sorry you have a complicated kid. Honestly, for me, it always bums me out when people are like, Amy, I did everything you said, and it's been so great. They talk really openly to me. And then I'm like, yeah, I did all the things too, and my kid won't talk to me. Anyway, okay, that's that. Have a good week. If you need me, call me, please. 206-926-1522. Show's way more fun if you ask me questions. And check out the show notes. Sign up for my newsletter so you can get that info about talking to neurodiverse kids. Because if you got one, I want to help ya. All right, take care. That's it for this week. Thanks to everyone who's been calling in. The number's 206-926-1522, so please leave me a message if you have a question or a tale from the trenches. And thank you to Melanie Smith, my producer, and to Rolf, who wrote the Birds and Bees and Kids theme song.